G'day mates, it's the Doctor here, and it's time to go over the worst episodes in the Andrew Brenner era. While Brenner and his team may have corrected a lot of the errors Thomas and Friends was suffering from, like constant rhyming is gone, the 3 strikes you're out formula isn't as prevalent, there were still a few hiccups along the way, but I want to make this perfectly clear, there was a lot more good episodes than bad episodes, so take this as a treatment of tough love. So let's go over the top 10 worst episodes from the Andrew Brenner era, and I hope you enjoy. Number 10. Diesel Glows Away. Remember the character Diesel? How he wanted to prove his kind is vastly superior over the steam engines? And held a grudge against Doc and wanted to pay him out? Inflicting pain upon the trucks for teasing him? And wanted nothing more but to be really useful? Yeah, nah, I think there are some conflicting motivations with this character. This is what I meant in my last video, how Diesel is really just a shadow of his former self. Most episodes today depict him as a mischievous character instead of a devious Diesel, or an evil Diesel. The closest we've gotten to classic era Diesel would be no more Mr. Nice Engine for manipulating Hero to see his way with the trucks, Thomas the Quarry Engine to leave him do all the stressful work, a most singular Engine trying to get Daisy and Harvey to hate each other. That's it. It also doesn't help the only voice for Diesel nowadays is his UK voice, which I have to say is one of the worst casting choices in the CGI series. Diesel Glows Away is just a weak episode. The only reason this episode isn't any higher on the list is because Thomas doesn't appear in the story, so it gets bonus points for that, but still not enough to save it from being one of the worst episodes of the Brenner era. Number 9. A Shed for Edward. I know a lot of people would expect me to put this higher up on the list, but to be completely honest, I don't find the rest of the episode that bad. It's just the ending that makes this awful. Overall, I think this is an okay episode at best, but let's talk about that ending. When this episode aired, it became one of the most hated episodes of all time, because they were essentially kicking out a character that has been around since the literal beginning. And it's true, the very first story in the Railway series was about Edward, and Thomas wasn't even in the first book. While it doesn't mean Edward is permanently gone from the show, it was still a hurtful moment for fans to witness. What hurts even more is how Edward was getting some great episodes, and then suddenly he is thrown out of the main cast. Number 8. Pouty James. This one gets the award for most generic episode. All it is James being himself and the Fat Controller tells him off. Which never gets through James's head because if he did become a sensible engine, then he would be no different than Edward. And even the narrator at the end says, that is how James changed his attitude, but not for long. Boring, uninspired, no originality. Pouty James is perhaps the most skippable episode because you're not really missing out on anything if you do. Number 7. Gordon gets the giggles. Let's make this a quick one. They took this moment from Not Now Charlie and expanded it into an entire story, making it one of the most cringeworthy episodes in the Brenner era. To put it bluntly, an episode like this is absolutely undignified. Number 6. Forever and Ever. How can I include A Shed for Edward without this episode? As if kicking off one character wasn't bad enough, we also got Henry leaving, and what makes this even worse than A Shed for Edward is how we got one good Henry episode where the character finally seemed to return to form, and then Forever and Ever happens. I remember some people commenting how Gordon represents the fans, how people don't like changes, but not every change is a good thing. It's a basic fact in life, Mr. Brenner. I'm sure you would agree with me. If all of this is about bending to a vocal minority of SJWs believing Thomas and Friends needs to be more representative, you, Hit Entertainment and Mattel, need to remember woke culture doesn't sell. Critics don't pay for your show or merchandise. Fans do. This is why the saying, get woke, go broke, has become so popularized. I mean, look at Terminator Dark Fate. Again, I must stress, I doubt this is a permanent removal of Henry, as in, he will never appear in another episode, but it's still a miserable moment for one of the longest running children's shows. I don't mind Rebecca as a character, but is it worth sacrificing another character? Absolutely not. Number 5. Stuck in Gear. How stupid do you have to be to write an episode like this? If there's one thing everybody hates about the Miller era is that it lacked consistency with the characters. Ed Harvey is not in character here. We're expected to believe Harvey has a phobia of people cheering him on, but this was never a thing in his introduction, so where does this come from? And let's not forget in season 17 Gone Fishing, Harvey had no problems being commented by porters, so again, where does this come from? Also, with Harvey getting a brunch stuck in his crane, his driver and fireman could easily yank it out without going through all this trouble. It's not even a big brunch, so... This episode doesn't make any sense. Number 4. An engine of many colors. Oh look! Another follow-up to the fastest red engine on Sodor. And it was still terrible! If there is anything to remember this episode by, it is wasted potential. To carry that plot element of a Fat Controller warning that he will paint James blue from all the way back in season 1 has so much potential to see James as a very similar looking Edward. Instead, we get dream sequences the episode. The reason fans hate these sequences is because they just fill up space and don't add anything to the story, and are so forced into the current episodes, I roll my eyes every time I see one coming. It is easily the worst James episode because it could have been something, but chose to be nothing. Number 3. Thomas makes a mistake. This is why the inclusion of Thomas in so many episodes upsets the entire community. It breaks continuity. Something we were just talking about a moment ago. How many times have we seen Thomas learning to be patient, don't be so reckless, and just owning up to his mistakes before everything gets worse? Apparently the writers for this episode don't remember either. In Unlucky Tug's review of season 20, he pointed out how kids aren't recognizing the characters, and this is why. We know Thomas, we don't know who Shankar, Rajiv, or whoever the heck this other character is. Okay, I'm actually going off script here because I realized while recording, I don't recognize this character. Like, I don't remember who this character is. I don't know how to pronounce their name. And if I don't remember the newer characters, like an older fan like myself, if I don't remember these characters, how will kids know them? This is why the formula of shoving Thomas into so many episodes doesn't work. Number 2. Diesel and the Ducklings. If they want us to believe this Diesel is also this Diesel, why on earth did they feel like showing Diesel needs a soft side? It is a slap in the face to the character. The reason Diesel stood out so much is from the very moment he appears on screen for the first time, you know this is a terrifying locomotive. In fact, let's take a moment and admire David Mitten's directing talent. The episode starts off with Duck, who is kind of small and looks like an average bloke who wants to get on with his day. Then you have this thing, who is far bigger, all around dark, with a demented smile and a very low, ominous tune to his theme. This is why people like Diesel. Kids want to be intimidated. It's how we remember these characters for so many years. Now let's throw that all away and say he likes ducklings. As I was writing this, I realized this is similar to Gordon Gets the Giggles, taking a rough and tough character and showing they need a soft side as if they needed it? Hopefully we'll never see one of these big guys' soft side stories because they are not funny and it completely degrades who they are. And the worst episode of the Andrew Brenner era is Thomas in the Wild. Let me explain this one. The story is about Thomas looking for a giant panda. He comes across rare animals but is fixated on seeing a giant panda. Here is why I believe this is the worst episode of the entire Brenner era. Thomas neglects that he is still encountering rare animals and he should appreciate this. But he still complains that he isn't getting what he wants, and then through some of the worst writing he gets what he wants. This is literally the Peppa Pig formula teaching kids all you have to do is complain and eventually you'll get what you want. But we're also talking about endangered animals, and this episode has zero respect for wildlife, like this one doesn't matter, that one doesn't matter, I just want a giant panda. We're not just talking about fantasy creatures, these are real animals. The other thing is using myself as an example. If I go through rough times in my life, I try and remember the good times. Times where I had an experience, or when I had an incredible encounter myself. And this episode is trying to say none of that matters except what you desire most. For a show that's all about teaching kids lessons in life, this is without question the worst moral to ever tell anyone of any age. The only way this episode could be any worse is if they included a dream sequence. Oh yeah. And that will be the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to watch my top 10 best episodes of the Andrew Brenner era. And I'm sorry this video came out later than intended, so for the next couple of months I'm going to be releasing other videos I have already recorded, and it may be a while until I do my next discussion video, whatever it may be on. So please remember to subscribe, ring the bell, and until next time, take care, mates!